30 days before we went for elections on December 7, the president, the vice president, the ministers, government appointees who are in charge of various departments and agencies were expected to prepare their handing over notes. It ought to be comprehensive and must also look to what has to be done that they couldn't do. And as we speak, the incumbent president and the incumbent vice president are expected to vacate their official residences a day before the swearing in of the person elected as president. And if either of them desire to move into an alternate official residence. So a day before the 7th of January, President Akufo-Addo, Vice President Dr. Bawumia must move from their official residence. They must vacate. All ministers, all appointees who are occupying various residential accommodations are also expected to vacate at least within 3 months after John Mahama takes over. Welcome to the law. It is your legal light, it is your health law, and we are going to give you 101, the Presidential Transition Act 2012. I'm Samson Lardi Anyenini. I am with
Mamavi Oswabwaji.
We'll be right back.
Thank you for staying with the law. So the concept of presidential transition is crucial in democratic governance. It ensures a smooth transfer of power between elected presidents, maintaining stability and continuity in government. Here's a quick overview of the Presidential Transition Act as we have it, 2012, Act 845. Now, what is the purpose of Act 845? We'll also talk about the objective. The Presidential Transition Act establishes arrangements for the political transfer of administration. Its primary purpose is to facilitate the transition process between democratically elected presidents and regulate the transfer of power. Now, let's look at the objective of the Act, which is captured in the preamble to the Act. We refer to it as the long title. So the objective of this Act, as it aims to ensure that the transition is orderly, transparent, and respects democratic principles. But I want us to capture exactly how it is stated in this Act. It says an act to establish arrangements for the political transfer of administration from one democratically elected president to another democratically elected president to provide for the regulation of the political transfer of power and for related matters. And so that's the objective of this Act as outlined in Act 845. I want us to go to the structure of the transition, the structure of the transition team. Under Act 845, the transition team is responsible for coordinating the transition process. And
talking about the transition team as we have them now that yes. are at loggerheads.
The last
many
statement
times
that was issued was joints.
The last was joint, and that was beautiful.
Exactly.
The first one separately,
yes,
and they were contradicting each other.
Exactly.
That Felix Ofosu-Kwakye signed the first one, and he said they had agreed that transactions that involved huge amounts of money will not be done without recourse to the team.
Exactly.
Then Fatima Abubakar, the Minister for Information, also issued one and said no such agreement was reached, and in any case, the government was the government constituted by law until midnight of the 6th of January. So, Felix, shut up.
But as you would see in the next highlights,
right.
I break the teams down into the transition team.
We're loving it. So let's continue.
And then the advisory council, which I think will be the second team.
Right.
And the reason I'm talking about the advisory council is because where the transition team is unable to agree on issues, they would have to refer to the advisory council.
And Bagbin has to be the chair.
Exactly.
Hey.
And that's not because he's Alban Bagbin, but it's because he's Speaker of Parliament.
That's right.
And the council steps in, as I have already said, to resolve disagreement within the transition team, ensuring effective communication and collaboration. And what they say will be final.
That's right.
Yeah. So the transition team, the formation of the team as we have it, we're going to put it on the screen because the NDC presented its team and Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo also presented his team. So that's together.
In accordance with this law. So let's finish with what the law says before we go on to show you both teams. Mamavi is continuing.
So according to Section 1 of Act 845, the transition team must be formed within 24 hours after the declaration of the presidential election results.
That's instructive. Within 24 hours after the results have been declared. But somehow this time we understood that Akufo-Addo said, why not let's do it immediately?
Yes.
We don't need to wait for 2 days.
And we saw that reflect in the acceptance of victory speech of former President Mahama, President-elect.
He made the disclosure.
Exactly.
And shortly after, they did something that happens in the US. Very uncommon in this part of our world, on our continent. The President-elect was at the Jubilee House visiting with the President and the President showing him around and having conversations.
Right.
Of course, we saw that also between President Kufuor and Mills. And that is beautiful.
So this would be the official first meeting
Right.
of this team.
Right.
Yeah. And then, of course, we saw the statements, which we're going to show you, and the makeup of the transition team on both sides. So there you have it in accordance with Section 1.1 of the Presidential Transition Act. The President put up his team, which is headed by, so that's the head of the presidential staff appointed under the Presidential Act. The Chief of Staff, Akosua Frema Osei Opare. And then there's the Attorney General, Godfrey Yeboah-Dame, Minister responsible for presidential affairs. Now, that's the one that created a bit of a controversy. And yesterday on Newsfile, he was introduced as Parliamentary Affairs Minister. And then Inus Afuseni also reminded us that he's also the Presidential Affairs Minister, except that I'm not sure if he confirmed that, but the President kept saying it, and indeed it's in the statement. Right. There's also the Finance Minister, Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam, the Henry Korte, the Minister for Interior, Dominic Nitiwu, Defense, Foreign Affairs, Shirley Ayoko Botwe, and Local Government, Martin J. Mensah Kosa, as well as National Security Minister, Albert Kandapa.
And you're saying that this list is in accord with the Presidential Transition Act that you are being educating us about right now?
Yes.
This is strictly in accordance with the law. Okay, so let's see what the NDC also did. Who did they appoint? Who did President Mahama appoint to be on the Presidential Transition Team?
Here we go. So the head of this team, if you like, is Julius Deborah, who is co-chairperson alongside Frema Osei Opare. That's the former Chief of Staff. Also part of this team is the chairman of the National Democratic Congress, Johnson Esiedun Katia. Fifi Kwete, the General Secretary of the party, is also a member. Callistus Mahama, member, secretary to the transition team. Valerie Sawyer, former Deputy Chief of Staff, is also a member. Professor Kwame Ahoy is a member. Dr. Kesel Atafosing is a member as well. That's the minority leader in this current parliament. Mahama Yariga is also a member. Guzi Tando is a member, and Dr. Edward Omani Boahama, the director of elections for the party, is also a member of this transition team.
And this is also in accordance with the Transition Act.
Yes. But
are people right when they suspect that the people that are appointed by John Mahama in correspondence with those appointed by the president, who are already designated, because the president doesn't have a choice. He must appoint the people that the law says he should appoint. So his job is actually, if you like, ceremonial. Just do the naming because you have already been given the list.
Right.
Are people right when they suspect that those appointed by President Mahama may take the positions that the law prescribes?
That's a very tricky one.
Yeah.
For many people, Julius Deborah will most likely be the chief of staff.
Because you have Fremont Paris, the chief of staff.
Exactly.
And the law requires that you should appoint the chief of staff.
Yes.
So maybe the rest may follow, but it may also not follow. But this afternoon, that is not what.
Thank you for bringing me back on track.
And the co-chairpersons, you find Julius Deborah on the John Mahama side and Akosua Fremont Paris on the Nana Akufo-Addo side.
Right.
The law says that the president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and the president-elect, John Dramani Mahama, must be co-chairs. But if they will not find time to do it, they are allowed to delegate that authority. Yeah. So this is what they have done.
Yes.
Otherwise, they are the ones who are supposed to be chairs, co-chairs.
Exactly.
Great.
So in the very first meeting where they were both present, we could conclude that they both co-chaired that meeting.
That's right. And before we came on air, I deliberately cross-checked with both communications persons for the two teams.
Right.
To be double sure that it remains what it is. And the minister confirms, and Felix also confirms. Julius Deborah is the co-chair, with Fremont Paris.
Okay. Which means that the power has been delegated from both sides.
That's right.
To these two. Right.
If you are just joining us, this is the law. It is your legal light. It is your help law. And what are we helping you with? And what are we bringing light to you about? It is about the Presidential Transition Act 2012. And as Mamavi has taken us through the journey, it is the law that is set up to help a smooth transition of power from one democratically elected government to another, or president, so to speak. Right. So as we have done in the last 2 weeks, we will shortly open the phone lines for you after we have gone through some of the details and then hear your questions. Keep them around transition, please. No elections. All right. So where do we go from here?
There's the bit about moving out of state properties, which will be crucial, and I would love for us to touch on that. But there's also the crucial bit about Section 14. So maybe we should spend a bit of time on Section 14 because there's been a Supreme Court interpretation of Section 14.
And that is important because you may just Google the law now and you will read the law as it is, but there has been a change to the law by way of judicial law making. The Supreme Court makes law by its, decisions. And by one of its decisions, there's been two, but we'll deal with one, which changes parts of this law. So Section 10. Section 10 of the Presidential Transition Act says the incumbent president and the incumbent vice president, in this case, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia shall vacate their official residences before the day of the swearing in of the person elected as president. That is, before the 7th of January, President Akufo-Addo and Vice President Bawumia must leave their official residences. And if either of them so desires, they will move into an alternate official residence. So the state is supposed to make provision for them for official residence where they shall be. And whilst we go through the job of the transition teams, you will find that part of their job actually is to ensure that what these persons are entitled, they get. I'm sure there's a debate that is coming up about that because of what President Mahama said some time ago about how he was not getting what he was deserving. He was in his private residence. He had his private office, both maintained by himself. He was paying water bills, paying light bills, paying domestic staff, among others. Actually paying for his own air ticket for himself and his wife when they were traveling. And that has come up, and people are saying this is terrible. And we are told that Godfrey Dame has been saying at somewhere that things that happened were regrettable, shouldn't have happened.
I wonder if this was regrettable as well, as we talk about they moving out of their official residences. Remember back in 2017, former President Mahama, now President-elect, wanted to maintain the house where he lived, the residence, and that's a place where he occupied as vice president then, and decided to stay on as president. And when it was time to go, he wanted to keep it because he was required to get a place. The state was to give him a place to live, and he wanted to stay on. He came out to say the transition team, it's interesting we're talking transition, the team had agreed then, but the Yawa Safumafu came to dispute that later, and they wanted him to move out.
That's right. So because of some of the acrimony associated with the transition, that is why we have this law. Remember, when Jerry Rawlings was transferring power to John Kufuor, a whole lot had to happen. People were being stopped in the middle of the road and their cars were being taken away from them. Some people's vehicles were being auctioned to them at ridiculously insane prices, you know. And so this law became useful. Now, apart from the president and the vice president who must leave their official residences a day before President Mahama is sworn in, and then if they so desire, be moved into official residences alternatively made for them. There are also others who must get ready to move. Who are they?
But they have a bit of time, yes, because they can stay on 3 months after the period. But these are persons who cease to hold office on the assumption of office of the president elected as president and is in occupation of an official residence shall vacate the residence within 3 months after that assumption of office. This you've highlighted already.
Right.
Yes.
So the people who are supposed to cease after John Mahama assumes office. What is this category of people? Some of them very obvious, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
These will be ministers of states.
Yeah, so section 14 says that on the assumption of office of the person elected as president, the person holding any office of the offices specified in the schedule shall cease to hold office, that office, and shall be paid the relevant retirement benefits and the enjoyment of facilities as provided by law. The functions of office of a person who ceases to hold office under subsection 1 shall be performed by a person so appointed by the president for the period specified in writing by the president. A public officer whose office is not specified in this schedule continues to hold office on the assumption of office by the person elected as president, subject to the provisions of the Constitution and of the relevant law applicable to that office. So, who in the schedule are these people who must also cease to hold office?
Right. One says the persons holding office under the Presidential Office Act 1993.
So there's a Presidential Office Act. That is the law that empowers the president to appoint his staff. The people that Samukujeto for a long time, Okujeto Ablaka for a long time was concerned about, that the president was appointing close to 1,000, or more. And he said, we can't do this to this country. It's a poor country. You can't have presidential staffers in those numbers. So those are the presidential staffers. You know them, the people who work around the president. He has a secretary. He has several of them communication officers. Some of them are friends who have contested elections and lost, and so on and so forth. There are people like that in the vice president's office,
yes,
who have portfolios like economic advisor to the president or the vice president, and various other such portfolios, including people like, I think, Osaf Mafu himself.
Yes, senior minister.
So those people, they cease to hold office, and they are also required to vacate their official residences.
Right.
Except, as you said, they have a grace period of 3 months after John Mahama comes into office. And the law said John Mahama is also supposed to appoint people to take over these offices. Then, number 2.
Ministers and deputy ministers of states.
Well, that one, I think, it's very obvious, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
All right, so all the ministers and the deputy ministers, the regional and deputy regional ministers of state who are living in state bungalows, so to speak, are supposed to vacate not later than 30 days after John Mahama becomes, not later than
3 months.
3 months after John Mahama becomes president.
Yes. And then we have special assistants, special aides to the president, to the vice president, and to the ministers of states, which you have captured, I think, in the first one.
And among them, you also have persons who are appointed under offices under the presidency. So the Ghana AIDS Commission, for example, is an organization under the office of the president.
Right.
So those people too will be affected. Who else?
Non-career ambassadors and high commissioners.
All right. And finally,
persons appointed by the president or a minister of states as members of statutory boards and corporations. There
is a caveat, and Mamavi will take us through that caveat very shortly. There is a small caveat there. Not everybody under that is affected. But let's hold that on for a while, and we want to come to the phone lines in the next maybe 13 minutes. The transition teams, what are they supposed to do?
So under that, there are also committees.
Right.
And the committees are responsible for various things. So for instance, the one that I want to highlight is one that is quite popular because of the swearing-in ceremony. There's a whole committee that's in charge of that.
Inauguration. Right.
Yes.
So, as you can see in the slides that we shared with you earlier, there are supposed to be a number of committees and subcommittees. Mamavi just mentioned one of the subcommittees under Section 4. Section 4, read that so that we all can enjoy it.
The team shall establish from among the members of the team A an inauguration subcommittee, which shall be responsible for the organization of the inauguration of the person elected as president into office and for the taking of the oaths of office by the persons elected as president and vice president before Parliament on the 7th January.
Right. So there's an inauguration team as we speak who are making the preparation, call them event organizers,
Yes.
who are making sure that on the 7th, the president and the vice president will be sworn in by the Chief Justice before Parliament.
Right.
Then there is another subcommittee.
A government machinery subcommittee, which shall be responsible for arrangements for the handing over to the new administration of the machinery of the civil service, including the ministries and the departments and agencies under the ministries.
Right. Remember that we began by saying that all the ministers, the persons in the departments and agencies must have their handing over notes or reports ready. And the law says that ought to have been ready 30 days before the presidential elections,
Right.
before the 7th of December. So the government machinery subcommittee will ensure that there's these things that have been properly handed over. And as we speak, they are meeting, they are scrutinizing where they don't get better clarity. That is John Mohammed's team. They will ask Akufo-Addo's team, yes, we have seen this in this note, we have seen this in that note. What do you mean by it? We have seen that there is a debt of some, 100 million to be paid to Kofi Menu. Can you explain why? Because we don't really get the proper thing in the notes.
Yeah.
That's what they are doing.
Yeah.
The next is what?
The next is the presidency subcommittee, which shall ensure the orderly transfer of all official assets and liabilities of the president, the vice president, the ministers, the deputy ministers, the regional ministers, the deputy regional ministers, and the presidential staff to the new administration.
So the orderly transfer of all official assets, like vehicles, among other things. You remember, there was once where we were told that somebody was taking out furniture in his official residence. That was such a wild, unbelievable claim for a person of the stature of the Speaker of Parliament. I was very shocked about that.
But that could be justified if you bought those items with your own money.
Well, once they are not official assets, you have to take them away.
Exactly.
And we're told there were carpets that were being removed. And liabilities. So liabilities will be, what is it that you have incurred, debts you have incurred, and so on and so forth. The new team must know so that they will take care of that. And then what again?
Any other subcommittees which the team considers relevant in the performance of any of the functions of the team.
Great. So as I understand, there are 9 subcommittees presently.
Right.
You have the presidency, the government machinery, which you have mentioned, which are established by the law, the inauguration committee, there is the finance and economic committee. So you can imagine Ato Forson will be very busy, together with Mohammed Amin Adam.
Right.
Then there is the energy and natural resources subcommittee. It's not surprising that President Mahama is talking about the debt, humongous debt in that sector, which he feels will be such a hurdle once he takes over office.
Yes.
This is how he will get to know it, because the energy minister will do his handing over notes, they are reading over it, and they are sharing.
In fact, one of the issues that the earlier statement tackled from the NDC's side was how government was choosing to pay someone over others, and they thought that IPPs would be more important than...
I said we are opening the phone lines at a particular time, but someone is already calling. Hold on briefly. There is also the legal and governance subcommittee.
Yes.
So you will find Godfrey Dame, serious work here. Mahama Yarega, serious work here. And people are asking, is Mahama Yarega potentially incoming Attorney General? There's also infrastructure subcommittee. When we hear all the claims about we have done agenda, how many of them have been completed, handed over? Some say you have handed over just buildings. They are not hospitals.
Yeah.
They are getting to know the details. So these are the things that are going on. Some say we have built this kilometers of roads. They will get to know all of that. Then there's the Interior and Public Safety or Security Subcommittee.
Right.
And then there's a Social Sector Subcommittee. I suppose the social sector will include employment, and that's where Guzi Tano will feature, because he's been very critical on the Mahama team as far as employment issues are concerned.
Yeah. And quickly also to add that the incoming president also receives security briefings.
Exactly. And the security briefing was supposed to have commenced immediately after he was declared, according to this law. And by those teams, the president was supposed to have national security briefings. So as we speak, you can say they are like almost like two presidents in operation, because national security is for the president. The president is the commander-in-chief and his head. But when I said that, don't misquote me anywhere. I haven't said that there are two presidents. There's one president. That president's tenure terminates on midnight, the 6th of January, 2025. So he is president. In law, we say de jure, by law. And then we have another one, president de facto, by election, popularly elected. So, our production say phone lines, and Whipper on the phone lines. Today she's at work. Isaiah is calling us from Tamale. What's your question to Mamavi?
Okay, thank you very much, and for educating us on this very important law. My question is that, do we have transition team for at the regional levels, at the district levels?
So by the law, the presidency is supposed to take the handing over notes of all of these people and deal with them. Remember that at the regional levels, at the district levels, the people there are acting in the name of the president. So they are representatives of the president. That question was to Mamavi.
Samson has already answered it.
Okay.
So by name, we do not have, because the question was, do we have regions also being represented on the committees?
No.
By name, we don't.
Hello, David. You are calling us from Sandema.
Good afternoon, Samson. Mamavi, you are doing a great job educating us on this. I want to find out the Director Generals, for instance, organizations like Ghana Maritime and CEOs of Smith and Co., whether they are also under the President Act. And then the district levels, can't they also have transition teams? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll deal with that shortly, because I told you we left a caveat which Mamavi will take care of very soon to give a certain difference. But the MMDCEs, there was a suit in the court, and the court said this law does not apply to them in a certain sense, because they are all acting to the president. All right. Who do we have next on the line? Okay, so it's David from Sandema who just left the phone. You're calling us from Medina. What's your name? Hello?
Yes, hello.
Yes. What's your name? Go ahead.
Yeah, my question is...
What's your name? What's your name? What's your name?
Ray, Medina.
Ray.
Yes.
Okay.
Since the outgoing president leave on the 6th, 12 midnight, and the next president is sworn in on the 7th, within that hours, who is the president? Is it the speaker or there's just a vacuum?
Yeah. Mamavi, this question always comes up, right?
Yes, it does.
So who is the president? We want to have a president within the midnight. Okay? Yeah. So who is he?
Midnight, it will be the one who is coming, isn't it?
Yeah. So you see, by the operation of your election laws, as we speak, you have a new president, except that he has not been sworn in to perform the duties of a president. Okay? So President Akufo-Addo appreciates, and he knows that midnight, he cannot give one single order to anybody to do anything in the name of the president. If he gives any such order, it will be disobeyed and there will not be consequences. But today, if he gave an order to the army chief and they didn't take it, they will lose their jobs for not obeying an order which is lawful from the president. Today, if he put a signature on something and said that there is a curfew or anything, it will stand. But midnight, after midnight on the 6th of January, if he did that, nobody will respect it and nothing will happen. Midnight, if he decided to sign a contract, why he wanted to sign that contract midnight, after midnight, nobody will know, or at dawn on the 6th of January, nobody knows. If he did that, whoever you are who is taking that contract, you too, like Stoneboy will say, All right, yeah, who is on next? Oh, sorry, I understand your line dropped. So you can call. This is the law. It's your legal light. It is your help law. Myself with Mamavi Usabuaji, we are trying to help you appreciate the Presidential Transition Act 2012 and how it operates to govern the transfer of power. Now, before our next caller comes in, there is a certain important aspect of this law, but unfortunately, it hardly gets the attention it deserves. The Administrator General. That is an officer appointed under this law who is supposed to have his terms and conditions of service equal to a justice of the Court of Appeal of Ghana. That makes him secured and somehow satisfied. But we have known the complaints that have come over a period of time. He has a very important job to do. Among others, he's supposed to prepare a national register covering all the public lands and any other lands vested in the president by the Constitution or any other law and of any other official asset. He's supposed to conduct a stock-taking exercise in the presence of the head of the household of the official asset in the official residence and in the personal or private residence of the president, the vice president, and each of the ministers 30 days before John Mahama is sworn in or assumes office. 30 days before the incumbent president leaves office. But we understand they are not able to do their job. They are supposed to, the Administrator General is supposed to conduct any other stock-taking exercise to ensure accountability and transparency. If this officer, man or woman, was doing their job, equipped to do it well, you will not need anything called oral.
I agree.
Yeah, you will need that. Yeah. Now people are saying people are trying to steal cars, people are trying to steal ABC and change stuff. If this kind of officer does their work well, we will not see the need. There will not be the need for any of such things to be done. Hello, Abdul.
Yes.
Abdul Mumuni.
Good afternoon.
Yes, you're calling us from Northeast. Let's hear you.
Yeah. I thank you for your this dedication is very good for us. In fact, me myself, I've never knew this kind of law. Please, I want to ask about the transition team. Comparing Nanado transition team and then John Mahama. As the finance minister and then Otto Forsen, doesn't mean that after swearing in, your mama will automatically appoint or two persons as finance minister? That's my question.
Abdul, thank you for your question. Mamavi.
Well, you said automatically. It doesn't operate automatically, but of course, the president-elect could choose to give him the role as finance minister, but we do not know.
Because as we know, who they choose for the transition in that capacity signals, it's suspicion, signals the person they potentially want to become finance minister. But that is not fixed in the law. There is supposed to be the Presidential Estates Unit, which this Administrator General is supposed to manage. And he's supposed to take and keep an inventory of the assets and properties of government, which are assets and properties not vested in the Lands Commission established under the Constitution. So he's supposed to take inventory, count each one thing, go to every minister's home, the president and the vice president's home, and know everything that exists in all of these offices. Our assets, he is supposed to hold them, know where they are. He's supposed to ensure that these assets and properties of government are maintained in good condition and tenantable repair, and to ensure that where relevant, the assets and properties of government are transferred in good condition and tenantable repair. Tenantable repair simply means it should be in the state where you can live in. That is a building, a house. You can live in it without, having to sort of do anything.
I think it's instructive that the law mentions official assets in the official residence and in the personal or private residence of the president, vice president.
Official assets.
Exactly.
Official. Idrisu Abubakar, you are calling us from Nkoranza.
Yes, please.
Yes, let's hear you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for the opportunity being given. My question is about the transition team. His Excellency Akufo-Addo appointed the Vice President as the head of the economic team. So why is he not part of the transition team? Because he has in-depth knowledge about the economy and whatever transpires under his government. I thought he has in-depth knowledge. Why is he not part of the transitional team?
Mamavi will explain that again to you. She had already explained it when we started, why the people appointed were appointed. Yes.
Well, if you go to, and I want to take you to the law itself, the transition team, as we have it in section 1, within 24 hours after the declaration of the results of the presidential election, in accordance with Article 63 of the Constitution, the incumbent president shall appoint the head of the presidential staff appointed under the presidential
office. Head of
office.
presidential staff is chief of staff.
Chief of staff, yeah.
So see what the law is doing. The law is telling the president who to appoint. So move on.
And then the Attorney General, the ministers responsible for presidential affairs, finance, the interior, defense, foreign affairs, local government, and national security.
I hope you didn't hear vice president there. You didn't hear the person in charge of the economic team, right? Yeah.
So it's according strictly to what the law stipulates.
That's right. And then the president-elect, the law says, and the person elected as president shall appoint an equal number of persons as appointed by the president to constitute a transition team that shall include the head of the civil service. So apart from the two teams by people that the two presidents, president and president-elect appoint, the head of the civil service is part of this team. Mm-hmm. The head of the local government service, the secretary to the cabinet, and the national security coordinator are part of this team. Right.
There's no mention of the head of the economic management team in this law, which will be the vice president.
Economic management team.
It's not even a creation.
Where is that? Of law.
Exactly.
It is that the presidents have innovated it and we're enjoying it, correct? All right. Thank you very much. This is The Law. It's your legal light. It is your help law. This is our final edition for 2024. So the phone lines are open. You can call us and ask us any questions about the transition process. Then I'm back to the Administrator General.
Yes.
The one who was there, I don't know who is there now, had cause to complain that he had this one car which was even not properly functioning. How is he going to be able to do this job? To create the asset register, to create, if you like, call it a warehouse or so that can take custody of things that he can say, this car must come to here, bring it, instead of taking them to, there's a place they call the pool at the presidency. A lot of the cars for functionaries are parked there. And sometimes there's no proper inventory. And that's how you end up with issues like somebody taking a car allegedly and taking it into a sprayer and attempting to respray it. Somebody being arrested on the road and being asked to surrender a car by Yoko. And I was sitting at the Yoko offices when somebody was subjected to that. Yes, Mamavi, I hear we have somebody on the line.
Yes, we have Sham. Hello, Sham.
Yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Please go ahead.
Please, I said I want to know, with regards to the transition going on, I want to know what regulations subject somebody as a member of any of these parties to go into any office, to take people out of office in respect of his or her party being in power.
Okay, we understand what you're saying. Yeah, what do you tell?
There's no regulation in the law as we are sharing with you on that.
It's a completely, and we must say it with all the force we can muster, it's a completely unconstitutional and illegal conduct where you have party people besieging places, taking over toilets, and going to all sorts of places. And unfortunately, you hear people high up. And I was livid when I heard Freddie Blay previously, 2016, when the MPP won. When I heard him justify that on the basis of Article 41 thereabout or 41 thereabout, where the Constitution talks about the citizens having a duty to protect public property and expose and combat corruption. Let me open that and read to you. He used that for a very lame sort of defense. Article 41F says, Article 41 says, the exercise and enjoyment of rights and freedoms is inseparable from the performance of duties and obligations, and accordingly, it shall be the duty of every citizen, F, to protect and preserve public property and expose and combat misuse and waste of public funds and property. And MPP, what were they even called? Those groups, some forces, those who went to drive away a judge, those who went to the harbor, the Delta Force and the other one. They went to the Tema Port and they did some very wrongful criminal conduct. And Freddie Blay says, well, they are trying to protect public property. Today you are hearing some of the NDC people also encourage it. Joseph Yamin, leading people around places. It's completely unlawful. It's wrong.
There was a truck full of fertilizer that was apparently spotted and stopped.
Yeah. The thing, though, is that every citizen of Ghana has, can effect a citizen arrest. Once you see that wrong is going on, you can effect a citizen arrest. If reporting to police to do it may take a bit of time. Arrest the person, but the law says immediately you arrest the person, hand them over to the nearest police officer or police station. Don't take the law into your own hands. See what they did to the priest. They whipped them, they slapped the priest. These are foreigners who had come to Catholic, missionaries who are in the country to help. And they mistook them for criminals who were stealing government property. And they beat them up only to go and apologize and write letters and go kneel down. That's even not sufficient. They should take them to court and punish them for all of that. Yes, who do we have?
We have Peter in Afienya joining us. Hello, Peter. Peter, we can hardly hear you. If you can turn down the volume of the television so that we can hear you.
Peter will be our last call. So Mamavi will take us to who is affected if they are on boards or stuff like that.
Hello, Peter. Hello, Peter.
His line is not helping. Yeah. Peter, we are sorry. We can't take your call. We are sorry. Okay, Mamavi, so let's get to the question that was posed by our second caller.
Is this taking us to section 14?
Yes, the people who is affected. Is it everybody in these corporations and boards that is affected?
Right.
That's the question.
Yes. So the Supreme Court, and I'm using the case of Theophilus Donko and the Attorney General, where the court says that it's not, like a wholesale thing that once a new administration takes office, all the persons appointed on boards, statutory bodies, must also vacate their position.
Right.
So one would ask, how about chief executives, for instance? The court says the answer lies in the mode of appointment of the executive head concerned and the terms of conditions of appointments.
So the clarity the court gave us was in the case of Theophilus Donko versus the Attorney General in 2019, where the complaint was made that president coming in doesn't mean everybody must also clear off. Yes, ministers go, appointees, presidential staffers, all of those people go, but it doesn't mean everybody else must go. And the court said the chief executives or directors general of public boards or corporations who are appointed as public service officers in accordance with the Constitution cannot be removed unless it is in accordance with their terms, their contract terms, or for a just cause. Please note that chief executives or directors general of public boards, that's the controlling provision, of public boards or corporations who are appointed as public service officers in accordance with the Constitution cannot be removed unless it is in accordance with their contract terms or for just cause. Take note of that. Now, this law does not trump the Constitution. So, if you read somewhere in the Constitution, Article 199, I'm sure, Article 199, there is a requirement that if you have to deal with a public officer, you have to make them suffer discipline or suffer something in their appointment. Then there must be a just cause. I think it's 191, Article 191. It says, a member of the public services shall not be A, victimized or discriminated against for having discharged his duties faithfully in accordance with this Constitution, or dismissed or removed from office or reduced in rank or otherwise punished without just cause. Thank you. What will be your closing remarks, Mamavi? There's a lot to be said, but this is the best we can do within this time to help in educating you on the Transition Act.
Well, the fact that we have a Transition Act regulating what we have does not mean that it's a perfect system. There are calls for some reforms necessary to strengthen corporate governance in public corporations, because we haven't touched on everything, but there are some persons appointed by the president onto boards, for instance, who must vacate. And sometimes these are very knowledgeable people who make a lot of difference in these corporations.
I say, for example, not even that, ministers, that Educhum, this kind of minister.
The Minister of Education.
Somewhere else, he should stay. There are people like that. When, Trevor, Mawena Trevor was at the Ghana Free Zones Board or something, or, that place where Yofi is right now.
Exactly.
Perfect. But they came in, they removed there. Why? They are Ghanaians.
GMPC, no, not GMPC, GIPC.
GIPC, yeah.
Ghana Investment Promotion.
Anyway, thank you very much. And one of our viewers, I suppose he's in Germany, he says that we have seen instances where after transition, officials who have taken over give conflicting information about actuals and what contained in handing over notes. Is there a potential criminal liability of transition documents containing inaccurate information? Well, if you tell a lie officially and you swear to it on oath,
knowing that
perjury,
you're telling a lie.
yeah, and it can get you into jail.
Yeah.
It's a felony. Yeah. I'm Samson Lardi Anyenini.
And I'm Mamavi Oswabonye.
This is the law. It's your legal light. It is your health law. I hope we have assisted you a bit this year. We'll continue, God willing, next year. Thanks for your company.